So the Peru Cusco mission, as far as I know, as it was 3 years ago, could possibly have changed by now, consisted of 4 districts, like a state, which are Cusco, Puno, Madre de Dios, and Abancay. So there's those 4 districts of Peru in the mission. I believe there were about 11 zones, maybe 12, and each of those had 6 to 7 districts. This mission is based in Cusco. When I was there were 2 stakes in Cusco. I think there's a third now. It's growing rapidly. And then Puno had 2 stakes, I think, in the main city. I think Madre de Dios just had the 1, and then Abancay just had the 1, I think. I spent most of my time in Cusco, so I know Cusco really well. The other areas I did go to, but not as much. The closest temple when I was there was the Cochabamba, Bolivia temple, or the Lima temple, depending on which side of the mission you were on. Now, they're building the Arequipa temple in Arequipa, which is only 5 hours from Cusco. Before, it was a 24-hour bus drive to either temple, Lima or Cochabamba. And they're building another temple in Lima, and they're just finishing one up north in Trujillo. But that's way far away. So the mission, like geography, I'd say 3/4 of it is mountainous. You spend, depending on where you are, you're well above 8,000 feet. That's where all the people live. And then we do have 2 areas that are jungle, and they're near sea level. So most of the time it's cold and dry, except in the rainy season, and then it rains every day. And they have a joke down there that if you're in the sun, you get burned, and if you're in the shade, you get burned, because it's so cold. And it's true. You can be outside in the middle of the day, melting in the sun or freezing in the shade. That's just the way it is. Religiously, the people are very Catholic. It was always interesting to see their like parades and idol worship. They would have like statues or kind of like floats, but carried by hand, of Virgin Mary. They have a big festival in Puno, La Virgen de la Candelaria. It's like a month-long craziness. There's a portion of it where the missionaries aren't even allowed to leave their homes because it's insane. But as for the members are very faithful. I had the opportunity to serve in, it wasn't a district, it was a family group about an hour outside of Cusco. So they were kind of like, a family group is a break off of a ward, basically. They don't have a branch president, they have a bishop, but the bishop is so far away that he really doesn't influence them at all. So at the time I was the district leader, and so I was in charge of this family group, with me and 3 other missionaries. And that's always a fun experience because you really get to know the members a lot, and spend most of your time with the members as you're, working to build up a family group, this small unit of the church, and delegate responsibilities and teach members. Most of these members were baptized in the last 5-10 years, and really don't know that much about the gospel. But I think it was the last week I was in Urcos, we found a family that was a member that hadn't been coming to church for a long time because they didn't think there was any church nearby. But the last week I was there, he was put in as the family group leader, freeing the missionaries from that responsibility, but with the understanding that we still need to help out a lot in that position. So by now, 3 years ago, that could be a branch, maybe even a ward. There's a ton of growth. Unfortunately, not a lot of retention. Lots of people are baptized, but then they don't stay in the church or stay active. And it's getting better as we work more with the members, teaching with them and really focusing on making sure there's a pass-off from the missionaries to the members. When I was there, a lot of our baptisms were young children or like teenagers, and most of the time they don't stay with the church for lots of reasons. The few converts that I baptized and that have stayed in the church were families, couples specifically. And the problem there is most people in Peru and South America aren't married. They live together, they have 3-6 kids, but they've never legally been married. And I remember we were teaching a family, and there had been like 6 couples of missionaries before us that had been teaching the same family, but they weren't married. Normally, missionaries would drop them after a while if they weren't going to get married. But for some reason, they had kept this couple. So I, learned their story, and the problem was the sister had been born in this really, really small town, like I think it was 3 or 4 hours away, like up in the hills, like nowhere near civilization. And in order to get married, you had to have a birth certificate. So after a while, my companion and we got permission to go to this remote, I don't even know what it's called, place out in the middle of nowhere. We figured out we could take a bus here and to this place and then get on a different bus and go out there, and there's only one bus that comes back, so you'll have to spend the rest of the day there. But we went and got there, and luckily the guy gave us the birth certificate. We didn't even know if he would, because we weren't her. But he did. And then we came back. We spent the whole day. That's all we did that day. While we were there, we did some tracting, but probably didn't get much out of that. But then we came back, and that couple got married. We put the paperwork together, got everything we needed, and planned a wedding and married them and baptized them, and they are still my most faithful converts. That couple and their 3 or 4 kids or so. So it's worth it. It takes a lot of work. Sometimes it's not that extreme. But getting the couples to actually get married, even if they've been living together for a year or 30 years, that's a challenge to get them married legally, and then to get them baptized, and a goal set to go to the temple. I would definitely focus more on having a good relationship with my companions. They weren't always the best. I had a few really awesome ones, and I actually had a lot of companions. Not always my fault. Not usually my fault. And some of these companions were coming off of emergency transfers and had been doing not so good things, and were sometimes difficult to deal with. But all you can do is love them and listen to them and try and understand. If you don't communicate with your companion, there's no way the Spirit can be with you. So I would definitely focus more on that, and teaching wise, I would definitely try and work more with families. Like I said, a lot of the youth that you baptize don't stay in the church, and I wish there was a way to fix that, but I don't know of any way. And the most success I had was with families. Baptizing a mom and a dad and whatever kids they may have. Or I even had one family that was just a mom and her kids, and I believe they're still faithful as well. So I served in the Peru Cusco mission. I served in Cusco twice, in a little city, Urcos. I served in Andahuaylas. I served in Quillabamba, Juliaca, Puno. I think that's it.